the key thing that a leader needs to do is help the individuals in the team understand the why.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of what we're doing? I mean, look at the word super and vision. It's the best vision of yourself. That's my role as a leader, is to get the best version out of you, Trev, through the supervision that we have of what you can achieve. If you can accept that the status quo is that change is the status quo, then you'll be far more comfortable with change.
My name is Trevor Vanston. I'm an action-centered leadership trainer, and I run a company called Perspective HR down here in the West Country. Thank you for joining us for another of our video podcasts on the very wide subject of leadership. I'm joined again today by my good friend Jim Hutton.
Yeah, Jim Hutton from One Life Coaching. I'm a leadership coach and mentor with a military background of some 46 years experience. Hi, Trev.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to tap into that experience today. I've got quite a big question to kick off with. This is one that we're regularly asked by our clients and by people that come on our training course. And that is particularly over the last few years with lockdown, COVID and all the rest of it. The world of work is becoming more complex. I mean, in the UK, 70% of the economy is a service industry, and a lot of folks now work from home. They work hybrid. They may work in serviced offices and that type of thing. So they're not all together in teams as we would know the traditional sense of work. So all of these things are happening. Again, you've got other things coming along, such as AI, and that's use in sort of, the HR process and all the rest of it. So lots of things are changing at a tremendous pace. Now, a leader, and we've talked about the functions of leadership and what they have to do, using the principles of action-centered leadership, how can the modern leader keep pace of all of these things?
Yeah, well, okay, let's just remind ourselves that the purpose of the leader is to fuse the talent of the individual and through teamwork achieve the task. Whatever that task is within business industry, etc. So with a disaggregated workforce, you don't have the office-like cohesion that we have traditionally experienced.
A water cooler.
Yeah, we're all in the same room, and we're constantly around each other. Work from home has changed that. We get that. I think the important thing is about work from home is that the company, the industry, provide the individuals with the capability to allow them to effectively communicate with the colleagues as part of a team in order to achieve the task. So you need the data, you need the information, you need the analysis, you need the ability to work with others, and I think we've been doing this long enough now, 4 or 5 years, where there are some very sophisticated software products that allow us to work individually in pairs and small groups concurrently. We can all edit the same document, collaboratively. In many ways, we can actually do it better and more efficiently than we used to do, where we're all sat around a meeting room waiting for our turn to talk. And, I'm not working whilst everyone, that guy's working, so I'm not, I'm waiting. Whereas now we can all work, we can react and respond to what's being said, and instantly everyone can see what that is.
Interesting.
So there are some advantages.
Yeah.
And AI, you mentioned AI as well. I'm a big fan of AI. I'm a one-man business. I don't and can't afford a personal assistant, but I've chosen to use AI as my personal assistant. So imagine now that everyone, let's say you lead a team of 6 people, and you've now, each of those individual people now have their own personal assistant. And so when you ask them to deliver something, they don't have to start with a clean sheet of paper. They can use AI to give them some ideas, to draw on best practice, draw on available knowledge, give them something as a starting point to work off which is what your personal assistant would have habitually have done for you in the past if you were at a standing where you could afford one. And never having been there, I'm enjoying the AI experience at the moment.
I remember going to a factory visit in my publishing days, and on a leadership event, and somebody used the wonderful expression about a company changing, and somebody in this organization looking up and saying everything will be fine when all this change stops.
Yes.
I think that horse has bolted.
Yeah, it's a great point, because people assume that change will stop, and if you can accept that the status quo is that change is the status quo, then you'll be far more comfortable with change. It never stops.
I think you're right. I mean, I always say to people on the training course that the word change is redundant, really, because it is the common state. How do you think then the approach from a leader will change, or has to change over time, if you think of the environment you just described there? So all of the things we talk about, for example, using your team in planning, getting all of that knowledge out of them. I always make this point that, you know, if you've possibly got the time and you have a project or a change or something to plan, route one is talk to your team. It's respectful, and people like to be asked their opinion, of course, but they have the knowledge as well. How will that approach change, do you think?
Yeah, I think at the heart of this is effective direction and guidance from the leader, and then supervision. And that is not, I'm careful in the term I'm using supervision, not micromanagement.
Yeah.
You know, you must allow people to use the brains they've got, the talent they have, the training and the skills, the professional experience that you selected them for and bringing them into the company in the first place. Let them soar. Let them go out and bring the best back, but keep them on track. So that supervision, I mean, look at the word super and vision. It's the best vision of yourself. That's my role as a leader, is to get the best version out of you, Trev, through the supervision that we have of what you can achieve.
That's a really insightful point.
So it's a light touch, and it's down to the direction and guidance you're given in the first place. So be precise in your words and your writing. You know, if you need to give guide rails or boundaries, set them, make sure they're clear, make sure they're understood. If there are constraints or limitations or restrictions in what that individual or the team can do, make sure they're clear. If you are having to make assumptions in order to progress planning, make sure those assumptions are recorded and that someone is monitoring whether the situation has changed and that assumption that you made is still valid or not. Because if you assumed something would happen and it never does, but your whole plan is based on the fact that it should have done, then that plan will be flawed.
Jim, there was something you said there which has sort of brought us to what I always think of as the sort of Grand Canyon-sized challenge or hole in leadership, and that is often when I'm talking to folks on the training course or follow-ups afterwards, people will always say at the beginning, "Oh, I really struggle to delegate. I've been put into this role, and it's got to go well. You know, it's got to be right. And you know, how much freedom can I give the team?" Now, I understand there's a whole range of different factors around that: the confidence of the leader, the complexity of the task, the confidence of the team. So there isn't probably a straightforward answer. But if you were stood in my training course and somebody asked that question, what are the sort of processes or the thoughts you would give people to overcome that hurdle?
Well, I'd say delegation is a bit of an art form in the first instance.
So it's not a science.
No, you've got to do it to experience it. We have leaders and followers. We're all followers of someone. And you need to, as a follower, you know what it's like to be given delegation.
Yep.
and to have that withheld. And boy, the latter is frustrating. You know, when you know you can do something, but you're never empowered to do it, that is just, that's not a good. It's
That's
not
the
a good
opposite of
feel.
motivation. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's
You're
it.
gonna
It's
say.
not a
Yeah.
good feel. So I like the skill will matrix.
Oh,
I think that's a great illustration of deciding on the individual's skill levels, you know, their experience, their knowledge, their professionalism, skill levels, and their will. How motivated are they to do something for you, for the team, for the company? The combination of skill and will helps you decide whether you guide someone. So, someone with low skill levels, newly joined, perhaps, but a high will. I'm here, you know, I don't know much, but I really want to get stuck in. You know, you need to guide them. You need to hang that shining light for them to aim towards. You know, provide them with the doctrine or the operating procedures, so that they can find their way, the right way towards the guiding light shining. Those people who have maybe low skill and low will, so they don't know much and they are not inclined to be that supportive or take part, and that could be for a number of reasons. It could be their domestic situation, they've got other things on their mind,
Yep.
or they're just bored. You know, you really need to direct people like that. So you need to tell them this is what you need to do, and this is how you're going to do it, because they won't do it otherwise.
So what you're describing here, this is quite a useful sound board or diagnostic tool for a leader.
Yes.
To
Yeah.
use this for their
Yep.
organisation.
Because, you know, delegation is, it's easy to delegate to someone who has high skill, they know what they're doing, they're professional at it, you can trust them to get stuff done, and they're motivated to do it.
Yeah.
You know, those people are gold in any workforce, in any team, because you can just say, Joe, Julie, I need you to get after this, and they know exactly what they need to do, and they just fly. Because you've empowered them to do it. You delegate, and they're off.
You have sparked a really interesting point there. There are two old chestnuts that come round regularly on this, and one of those is the board employee. All right, so I think what we would probably refer to as in this process as high skill and low will. So when you have, you know, what we used to refer to them as the 80%, and they're now referred to as a quiet quitter is the new name. Somebody who just does enough to get by and is winding up the rest of the team and the manager. I regularly get phone calls about these individuals. What are your sort of top tips? If there's someone who's been there 8 or 10 years, they just get by, but there is a level of frustration building. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. Do you know, this is where the ability of the leader to communicate is all important. So sit down with Joe or Julie and have a conversation. Okay, right. I know you can do your job. We know you have done this job for 10 years. You're really good at it. That's why you're at the level you're at. But I can see that your heart's not in it. What's going on? Have the conversation. It'll come out. I recall, and I've written about, you know, a Marine of mine from the past who demonstrated this sort of high skill, low will through starting to be mischievous, getting himself into trouble, letting the side down. So I got him in. And I was about to sack him. I was at the end of my tether with this guy. But for some reason, when he walked in, the expression on his face I just said, okay, mate, what's wrong? And he turned around and said, I'm bored. And I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting you to say that. But okay, tell me why you're bored. And he told me. And I said, well, what can we do to change that? You know, what would it take to get rid of that boredom? And he said, and he told me what he wanted to do, and I made that thing happen for him, and he went on to great things as a result of that. And that thing that he asked to do, I would never have thought that was something he was interested in, but that's because I never asked him. But because I did, I found out what it was, and it wasn't that hard to make that happen. And so we took someone who was highly skilled at what he did, but had no will to perform, and turned him into a high skill, high will, super performer who did great things for people in the Royal Marines.
That's really interesting. And the second thing that, like I say, that people say to me at times is that, look, you know, we're really busy, we've got to achieve the task and all the rest of it, I've got to keep the team informed. I don't always have the time to speak to every individual in the organisation, which is a weakness. And I guess a side issue that comes off of that, and a mistake that people make, and I used to do this myself a lot, was to have several go-to people, your gold dust people, as you said, who you know will solve the problem for you. And I always say to people on the course, there is a danger that if you always go to your go-to ones, you'll wear them out, and the other point, of course, is that the rest of the team think, well, actually, we're the B team. We will just. They never ask us to do anything challenging. How does a leader overcome those two issues? The lack of time and this. I think it's a survival mechanism. People think, I will go to my strongest ones. Get me out of a hole.
In the military, we use the buddy-buddy system. We pair people off. And I think you're familiar with the conscious competency model.
Yes.
So you come into a new role and you're unconsciously incompetent. You don't know what you don't know.
Your first driving lesson.
Yeah, that's it. You don't know what you don't know, and it's a really uncomfortable place to be. Nobody likes being in that sense. So you start reading, you start asking questions, so that you become consciously incompetent. Now you know what you don't know. And that gives you the ability to start doing something about it. And then you get to consciously competent, where you know what you know, and you know how to do things, and you've maybe done them once or twice. You're not hugely proficient at them yet, because most things you need to repeat and practice. And it might be the first time you've done that spreadsheet, and it was a bit clunky. The second time you do it, you get improved, and then 10th time you're just rolling, and you can whack through that particular task. And that stage you get to unconsciously competent, where you can do things without thinking about it, which is a nice place to be in the workplace. So I've found over the years that matching people, a good way of doing it is that when you get your unconsciously incompetent person, the new joiner, match them with their opposite, which is the consciously competent, because they can remember what that felt like. If you match them with the unconsciously competent person, they can't remember, and they kind of don't tolerate them that well. There's a bit of a it's you don't even know what haven't you read the SOP? It's just they're too far away. So I like to match the consciously competence with the unconsciously incompetence, and then the consciously incompetence, the people who know what they don't know, match them with the unconsciously competence.
I've never heard the model described like this. I hope people are taking notes of this.
Yeah, well, it's of course what you have to do as a leader is, when you sit down on day one of being the new leader, you get number one task is to know your team. First of all, know yourself, understand what your strengths are, understand where you can add value, understand where you can call them weaknesses, but those things that you're not so hot on, and then find the people who you know and can trust to do those things, on your behalf. So empower them to do that.
Let's wrap this section up then in terms of this taking us back to how complex the world of work is and the different dynamics at play and teams that are spread out and all the rest of it. Are there some particular challenges and possibly answers to this in terms of keeping a really high performing team when you don't have that physical look them in the eye contact? Are there ways to, what are your top tips in doing that in the environment we find ourselves in now?
Yeah, I think in that disaggregated environment, the key thing that a leader needs to do is help the individuals in the team understand the why.
Yep.
What is the purpose of what we're doing? I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek's Golden Circles, at the center of which you start with why. If you can explain the why, then people will get on with the what and how.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's never really a problem. And if the why changes, you've got to keep them updated. If that evolves, that why, that purpose, that rationale, that reason that we're doing something is evolving and changing, keep them on board, keep them updated.
And that very much brings us back to what we were talking about in an earlier podcast about action-centered leadership, task team and individuals, and that first function, clarifying the objective. That is about why. And about John Adair's comment that the difference between a leader and a manager, a leader and a boss will tell you to do something. And okay, in a crisis, that's the right thing to do. But over time, a leader will explain to you why something is important. And I think you've articulated that as to how that adds energy to this whole thing.
Yep. I mean, if you think about, you're a dad, a granddad, the most often heard word out of those little ones is why. We're curious by nature. We need to understand. And it doesn't stop when you become an adult. You want to know why.
Or they're trying to dodge the broccoli.
Or why do I have to eat the broccoli?
Stay up a bit later, but perhaps for another podcast, if you want to learn negotiating techniques, I'll get my grandchildren in. Jim, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Trevor. And that's the role of the leader, is don't loiter too long in the task or with the individual or with the team. Distribute yourself so that you are around and available, but not in the thick of it. So you invest in your people, you motivate your people, and you get the best results from your people.